Hello. Welcome to my afternoon stream. I'm going to be drawing comics, I guess. Maybe some illustrations. I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to work on today because there's so many things that I kind of just have to do. I might juggle a few things at once. I like to work that way. Those of you who are chiming in for the first time, welcome. Make yourselves at home. My whole thing is I like to play kind of relaxing music when I work sometimes. And I just, with the help of a friend, had my audio set up greatly improved. And right now it's the best it's been. But feel free to, anyone coming in, let me know if it sounds good or bad or whatever, because I'm still getting used to this new setup. But yeah, no, it seems great. Thanks again to Gross Girl. Yeah. All right, we're gonna start. Let me set up. I think I need some light over here. Hold on. That's better. Some light so I can be seen, so I'm not just backlit. Yeah, that's the next thing. So I need to have it set up so people can actually see the chat. There was a few times where I was actually, when I would watch the videos afterwards, I was able to, I clicked on something and the chat popped up, the live chat from the stream like the day before. Haven't been able to do that since, but it's one of those things I don't know what I did. Oh, so this is something cool. This medieval music playlist by somebody whose his channel is just called Ben. Give them a shout out. It's just called Ben. So I'm gonna pick what file to open to work on. Yeah, YouTube does that where you're like, oh my god, this worked, and you can't figure out what you did. Here, I'm gonna open. I think I'm gonna do some work for the King Arthur project. I'm in that kind of mood today. Sorry guys, hold on a sec. I'm just gonna use the iCloud to transfer this over so I can keep working on it. I only recently started using the iCloud. For a long time I was actually like using Dropbox and just sending files back and forth, and it would take forever and then I'd have to download it, whereas the iCloud, I'm starting to see what the benefit is. It's just like a subway system for JPEGs and PSDs. Yeah, it's good to have it, because if they stop supporting it or if you switch to another service. Yeah, that's a good point. When you say this is cool, do you mean the music? because the music, I agree, is really cool. It's like I've been really into that lately, like finding weird historical music that people wouldn't even know about. Here it is. Okay, I'm ready to start. What are you working on today, Gross Girl? Anything in particular? Today's going to be a little bit of a shorter stream. I'm only working for like an hour or so, I think. Oh wait, this isn't the one. No, this is not. This is not the one I wanted. Yeah, it's not. Okay, this is not the updated version. Hold on, guys. This is the problem when you do what I do, when you switch your files back and forth. You just, between Procreate on the iPad and Clip Studio, you just kind of like end up opening it, and then it's a really, really obsolete file from like around the time you first started. Very annoying. Okay, it says it's still uploading, so I'm going to just open a different one. Let's do a new file, actually. Okay, I'm back. Gross Girl says, I have some commissions to work, commission work to finish, and then I want to keep thumbnailing Reanimate. Oh, yeah. How's that going? I loved what you showed me, that comic. I would love to know how that's going. I need to keep getting inking practice into, but I'm starting to wonder if I'd have more fun with coloring. You probably would. Inking is one of those things that either people love it or they find it incredibly tedious. Yeah. I don't remember where your day job is, and it's okay if you don't want to say, but I know you told me and I just completely forgot. I think it's something in the industry, right? Like, I don't think it's like, it's not like Johnny working at Hooters. No offense, Johnny. I just know, I know that that's a uniquely, it's a unique position there. I'll do it this way, actually. I hope, is Johnny here? No, he's not here yet. I really like Johnny. He's a funny guy. He's got a good sense of humor about stuff. Oh yeah, yeah. Your thumbnails are too pretty. It's funny. I mean, that's a nice problem to have because it means you're hopefully composing quickly. But maybe what you mean is that you feel like you're spending too much time on your thumbnails. That's right. I think you might have told me this. Okay, I'm trying to figure out the layout of this page. Let's see. Yeah, I think I saw the other one too. Yeah, this one. So this was something I was talking about the other day. This is the original page. And I wanted to redraw Percival specifically because he didn't look right to me. That costume was redesigned into this. And even though this is a lot less realistic than this in some ways, I just think it looks really cool. But I gave him this big warhammer, which he has here. And I'm wondering if that's a mistake. Like, I'm thinking maybe it'd be really cool if I gave him like a small buckler shield in one hand and like a one-handed mace, because it just feels more dynamic. I don't know. Maybe. I'll see. Okay, so that is Merlin, but he does look a lot like Alan Moore. Here, I'll pull up another one. It's really funny. I didn't realize it until you just said that. He does look like Alan Moore. It's a travesty. Yeah, like, doesn't he look like he's about to, I don't know, do anything he can to piss off the ghost of Margaret Thatcher? Because that's what he looks like. That's what Alan Moore would do. Why 600 DPI for comic pages? I think when I did these, this was like my first time working on a Huion, like a big tablet instead of an iPad, and I really, at the time, was thinking that I'm gonna paint this whole comic. I'm gonna do the whole thing as a painting, and it's gonna have so much detail. And then I did 600 DPI, and I was like, oh, this is kind of unnecessary. It's also because I didn't realize at the time, because I'm still fairly new to digital art. I've been doing digital art for like 4 or 5 years, and I usually did everything at 300 DPI. I didn't realize that you can keep it at 300 to 400 DPI and raise the pixels, and that'll be more important for detail. Because a lot of these are like 600 DPI and then like 4,000 pixels, whereas you can go 300 to 400 DPI and do 5,000 pixels, and it's probably going to be just as good, if not better. Yeah. A lot of people do want to piss off the ghost of Margaret Thatcher. I don't know the woman personally. I mean, a friend of mine dated her for a bit. He said she was weird, she was whack, but that's all I know about her. She wasn't the nicest girlfriend. I actually don't know much about Margaret Thatcher. I know very little about that point in history. I know she was... Oh, I see what you're saying. Why 601? So that's actually a weird thing that happens automatically. When you transfer a PSD file, I learned this, and I don't know why this happens. When you send PSD files from like Procreate to Clip Studio, and then you reopen it, for some reason it'll always, not always, but it'll often change the DPI by like 1 point. So it'll make it like 601, or it'll make it 599 DPI, and it does that with any DPI level that you send it, it'll often change it by 1 for no reason. And I don't know what that is. No, a friend of mine did not actually date Margaret Thatcher. I'm joking. Sorry, was that overly deadpan? Yeah, I don't know why that happens though with this weird transfer thing. So I was gonna try to kind of paint in the new armor over the old one, but I may just redo the page. I don't know, because it's possible that this is going to be more trouble than it's worth. This is what I'll do. I'll just do a general sketch. I can't, Gross Girl, I'm so happy that the audio sounds better. I mean, I can't hear it right now, so if it continues to sound as good as it did when I was testing it out, then I'm a happy clam. That is cool as hell, man. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for people to be able to like hang out with me and not have to pray for the sounds to stop. Now the next thing I got to work on is my posture. I'm doing too much of that awful shrimp pose. Retest. Let me see this. How did I don't know why I start streaming and I just start yawning. It must mean this is greatly relaxing to me, perhaps. Okay. For anyone who's just chiming in now, or who sees this after the fact and skips ahead to this portion, I am tracing my own artwork, all right? Don't give me a hard time about it. I'm tracing my own drawing. I don't want to hear it. 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 It's my own drawing that I'm tracing. This is not me tracing someone else's. Just waiting for those comments to come in. Ooh, I'm getting mad just thinking about it. No, but really, I am tracing my own drawing. Because I'm not staunchly against tracing in all instances. I just don't want to be associated with it so early in my internet presence. I know that everybody in a professional setting will trace. Sometimes it happens. I get it. But I am still using the Huion at this moment, yes. That's what I'm doing this on. Why, did you have a question about it? Did you want to know? Tell me what you wanted to know about the Huion. I just don't want to expose anything too important. Sure, yeah. Am I worried about getting canceled? Like in general, I don't really care. No, I'm too old to give a shit. I know I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to. I mean, we're around the same age, I think. So like, at a certain point, you're like, I don't care. The internet's not a real place. This is like a strange alternate dimension where things are just odd. No, I don't. You mean like, oh, for tracing, or do you just mean it canceled in general? Because, no, I don't really worry about like what people will think or anything. I mean, like even this whole YouTube page is really, it's really just a really fun way to engage with people, and I'm advertised because I'm coming out with books, so I want people to know about it, and I've just seen a lot of people, artists like and writers and stuff who've like had successful stuff on YouTube, and mostly just because like they built little careers and stuff, and little side gigs doing this, and it helped put their name out there, and and if you're someone who's social and you like people, it's like a good avenue to take. So I figured I would try it, but I don't have a particular like you know I know, because I know some people that I was talking to, like I know Shut Up was talking about how she really is like worried about getting doxxed and stuff, like she's doing pitches for her stuff, and she's like, I don't want too many people to know. Oh shit, you're just back now? I hope I've been talking this whole time. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that you were gone. I can repeat anything you didn't hear. Wasn't that important anyways. Just the answer is no, I'm not really so worried about getting canceled or anything like that. I know that some people worry about that, but I don't really have any skeletons in my closet. Like, I'm not that interesting. If anyone were to like cancel me, I'd have to be really popular first. And I'm not at that point yet where canceling is the show has to start before it can get canceled. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, if I were ever to get canceled for anything, it would be for not being politically extreme enough, because it's like I myself, I think I'm pretty progressive, but like I have friends that are conservative, that are on the other side of the cultural debate and all that stuff, and like I don't begrudge them at all. I just don't agree with them on everything, and that's, it's easy. It's easy to live with people if you just understand it. But like for some people, that's like not okay. Like you can't be friends with people that are conservatives or whatever. And I don't care. I care about the quality of the individual. And we can argue. Like I argue with politics with people I know. We'll debate about stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like once that's done, it's like, okay, you want to eat something? You want to get a drink? Whatever. You got to be able to. But I know that I've seen people, especially in comics. Comics has gotten really scary because it's gotten very political, and you can end up losing your career in some cases because you are friends with someone who's like critical of something. It's just like crazy. Like you can't associate with them. But I think that culture is starting to fade. I think more and more people are like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to condemn a friend or a coworker just because they're like, I don't know, on the other side of a thing, like, because it's not healthy. But I don't know. Maybe I should be careful what I say about it at this moment, actually. Well, what do you think? Not to put you on the spot, but what do you think of centrism? It is, yeah, it's bad for business, honestly. Like, I think it is I think it's the kind of thing that it's just exhausting. Well, someone called it a purity test. You know, like, and that's on both sides, yeah, I guess, to some extent. I'm just checking something real quick. Um, Gross Girl, I agree with you 100% what you just said about where you lean and why, like, on some ways you lean the other way. Like, everything down to, like, the letters you used, I agree. I am the same. I'm not going to say it, I'm not going to, like, read it out because, you know, it's like I want to give you some privacy. But it's the same, yeah. It's like people, like I'm not really a centrist. Like I'm to the right on some things, to the left on others, and it's just very like you're not getting a full picture if you just think one side is right about everything, because that's not how anything works in the universe. Like nothing in the universe functions like that, where only one way of looking at it is completely right. It's just like there's literally been nothing I can think of where one philosophy is purely the way to go and nothing else, you know, is relevant. Like it's just never happened. Even in the field of like mathematics and like math logic, from what I understand, it's similar to philosophy in some ways, where like having different people's opinions improves, having the conflict of different opinions and outlooks actually improves the science itself. So we just have to accept that that's just how everything is, you know? And like for me, I started recently, I mean, I'm not saying I'm gung-ho Christian, but I started going to church again after years of not doing it because the church was kind of pissing me off a lot when I was younger, which is one of the reasons I ended up getting more, you know, to the left. And then I started going to church, but like I didn't go to like a super necessarily right-wing church, because I'm not going to abandon like all of my critique of the church. Instead, I went to like an Episcopalian church that's like super progressive and liberal, and you know, they allow the priest to marry and stuff, and they have female priests doing mass. They have all that stuff. They, you know, some people, you know, think that that's like a good step in the right direction, and you know, and it's like engaging with that stuff while also being like, yeah, I still have my criticisms of the church. I still have some of my views on religion, and like some of the negative things I've thought about religion in the past are still there. But I'm also, as I'm getting older, I'm more nuanced, and I'm like, yeah, but there's also like some really good shit about community and just going to a place where there's other people who are, they're there to, you know, even if it's just like a form of meditation everybody does together, that there's something really beautiful about that. And I realized while I was there that I was like, I don't know if I'm like praying, like I don't know if I'm praying to God in the way I'm supposed to based on how this goes, but like being around a lot of people that are just singing a song together, and you know, they're all just there like engaging with something that they believe is beyond their understanding. Like I don't know, that's nice. It's like the same reason you go to a sporting event. It's like you want to just see, you want to be in a, you know, a crowd that has the same intentionality, and I think it can be healthy. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm not surprised that you've encountered other Christians who've had that viewpoint, and yeah, I do think I think both the left and the right really need to get their act together, because it's pretty crazy. Like so I know you live in LA, right? That's where you're at. I lived in Brooklyn for a good chunk of my life at this point, like, and from the ages of, I think, 25 to 38 until I moved out here, or 37, I guess, because I turned 38 over here. And I think one of the reasons that my viewpoint changed over time was that, like, I spent a lot of time among super far left people, and I thought I was one of them I thought I was one of them until I spent a ton of time among people that are really far left, and I was like, yo, some of this shit is toxic. The not just the cancel culture stuff, but just, like, I don't want to get into so much of the specifics of it, but there's some elements of it where I was like, yo, you guys are like, well, I thought it was funny because I noticed something where I was like, everybody here talks about how much they hate religion, and then they're, like, basically in a religion but it's the religion of, like, who can be the most progressive person, and so they keep trying to outdo each other, like, by showing how accepting they are of any possible concept, and like, I'm a brown guy, and I'm among a lot of, like, liberal white people, and, like, listening. Like, I remember talking to my fiance about it, and I was like, man, the amount of, like, condescending white liberal talk I'm hearing from, like, just, like, white lefties, like, talking to me in a way that just felt like, okay, here's a good example. So I'm partly Cuban. I'm mostly Cuban, and my grandparents escaped from Castro, essentially. They got the hell out of Cuba right before Castro took over, because they knew that it was coming. They knew that it was going to be bad, and they got out of there many, many decades ago, and that's what kind of started our family. And obviously, my family, having survived communism, have a very dim view of communism. And the amount of, like, talking I've had to do to, like, white liberal millennials who think that they want communism in this country, it's blown my mind. And, like, having like a 25-year-old upper middle class suburban American white kid telling me how I don't know what communism is and how that's not real communism, like, blows my fucking mind. Like, I was just like, what are you doing right now? Like, do you see yourself? Oh yeah, my grandparents, yeah, they're very smart. They like, and it just shows, like, they're not educated. They didn't, like, they barely went to school. But there's a big difference between intelligence and wisdom, or education and wisdom, because they like a 7th grade reading level, but they smelled that blood in the water. But yeah, like, so when I hear people here talk about, like, Marxism and the Communist Manifesto and, like, how we need to, I was like, you don't know what you're talking about, and it upsets me, because it's like, obviously it's like, I don't think there's anything particularly liberal about about communism. I don't think it's progressive at all. It's like I don't know. It's like it's going so far in one direction, it comes out the other side as, like, complete fascist crap. Maybe fascism isn't the right word, but yeah, those were the conversations. And I remember my fiance at the time would see how annoyed I'd get at people when I would hear them say, like, kind of commie rhetoric, and I'd be like, dude, do they even know how good we have it here? Like, things are a mess here in this country right now. But I have read the manifesto. Have you? I'm curious what you think of it. It's crazy. It's like, I read the manifesto, and then I read a biography of Karl Marx where this guy was like, yo, Marx was a terrible person who was, like, in his life was hated by everybody who knew him. And even his father would write letters to him and be like Karl Marx's dad would write letters to him and he was like, hey son, I love you, but you are evil. Like he would be like, I think he says exact words was like, there's a demon in you and it will prevent you from having any domestic happiness. Because Marx was famous for saying repeatedly in his life, like not just once, but like he loved to say this saying that he felt was empowering, this kind of weird satanic thing where he would say, everything that exists deserves to perish. He used to love saying that. Everything that exists deserves to perish. Yeah, no, the book, it is kind of boring. But here's the thing. I read it and then I read about it by like economists. And it was interesting about like why people ignore it, because it's like there's this assumption that everybody ignored Karl Marx at the time because everybody's greedy and I didn't want to. It's like, no, it's because Karl Marx was not an economist and everything he's saying in there is like not real economics. He's just it's a philosophy. It's like it's a manifesto based on passions, you know. But it was not in any way. It was not in any way like written by somebody who actually understands how the economy works. So he had no idea how to implement these ideas. It was just like a passionate plea for change, but it's mixed with a kind of creepy, egocentric, you know. Yeah, he really, he hated Jews. Not gross in the cool way like you. Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that. Yeah, and he himself was Jewish, Karl Marx, but he was incredibly anti-Semitic. And he was very vocal about it. And it's funny, so my fiance is Jewish, and so is, obviously so is her family, but like I was talking to my future mother-in-law about it, and I forgot how Karl Marx came up. I don't think she necessarily brought him up favorably, but she brought him up in like a neutral way in reference to something. And I was like, yeah, he hated Jews, right? Like he was intensely anti-Semitic, Semitic. And she was like, oh, but wasn't he Jewish? I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. He hated his own people. He was a terribly bigoted person. And a lot of his writing is just full of racial slurs. It's like not just about Jews, but black people. Like he was not a good man. And his there's also just a lot of things about him where I was like reading about him and reading his stuff and being like, why does anybody want to listen to this jackass? Like he was like an incel. Like he also apparently had a major hygiene problem. He refused to bathe. Like he thought that hygiene was like a construct or something, like hygiene was like a social construct. So he would like refuse to bathe, and he kept getting all types of skin diseases. And apparently he stunk. People around him would always comment on the fact that Karl Marx smelled like shit because he refused to bathe, because it was like he was not a well man, and for some reason the crap that he said like has lingered for a century or two, and I don't really understand. Yeah, if we share everything, I don't have to worry. It is really funny. Yeah, it's like if he lived, like if Karl Marx was alive now, he'd be living in a basement. He'd be writing for some weird like MGTOW website about how like women are evil because nobody wants to talk to him. He would be just like, he'd be such a loser. And I think that people like weirdly deified him because he died before anybody now could record him doing a YouTube video complaining about how he shouldn't have to get a job, take a shower, or start exercising to attract women. They should just accept his value because he's so intelligent. And it's like, he was ahead of his time. Yeah, he was an incel before there were incels. And like it's funny too, because like looking at that in context of the time, there were so few men that were such layabouts. Like this is, I don't remember what, like late 1800s, early 19. It's like the amount of industrious masculine energy that was going on in the world. It was like everywhere. Like right now we have more of an issue of men finding motivation, like that whole culture of like men trying to find their ambition again. Like for some guys, that's hard, and because of I guess the way the culture is now, it's really complicated, that whole thing. But like, this was not really an issue at that time. This was like, everyone was like, most men were so focused on providing for their families, and they had this ambitious, and you can, some of that's good or bad, but the fact that like even in that time period he was this loser who refused to get a job is just incredible to me. He would frequently like borrow money from people and then just like ghost them. Like he was just a dipshit. He would borrow money from his uncle and his cousins and stuff and then just like not pay them back. And then when they would try to get their money back, he would like throw a tantrum and he would start like quoting his book about how wealth should be shared. It's like, bro, I lent you $1,000. Like I have kids. You were supposed to pay me back. I didn't charge you interest. Why, Yeah, yeah. 100% he'd be the kid you want to befriend, so he would tell you which day not to show up at school. Oh man, that's dark. It's really funny though. Yeah, I know exactly. You're like hoping that when the time comes, he'll overlook you. He'll pass you by. Yeah, so it not to harp too much on it, but it did bother me when I would see like friends of mine who are like, they're raised in pretty nice suburban homes and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, like Karl Marx, just like communism. I'm like, oh my god, dude. And like one of my friends, he struggles. Well, I don't want to get too into that, but he's like someone who has said stuff like this, and yet he requires medication to live, like he has some health issues. And I've been like, do you think a communist world would support someone like you? You'd be like the first to go. Like it's just like, look, I don't know why people keep thinking like this time it'll be different. When we do it, it'll be different than all the other times people have attempted to do this. Anyways, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to rant about this. It just opened up. Yeah, I agree with you, Girl Scroll. So you're touching on a topic that's very important to me when you talk about our ideas of masculinity, and it's like something I think a lot about and shows up in my work, and like what I find important. What I find important as like an artist, and what I find important as a person living in the world, as a man, You're touching on that topic. So I mean, I won't go into it because I'm sure you at some point you're probably sick of hearing guys talk about it, and I don't want to bore you. But yeah, it's very important to me, and I have a lot of thoughts about it, and I've attempted to be more balanced about it than I have in the past. But I guess I'd be curious what you think about it as somebody who has clearly thought about it, and someone who I've come to know as being a very nice, like a very kind person who seems very fair-minded about this stuff. Also, as a woman working in a field that was once, less so now, but has been historically really male-dominated. Because like I was just talking to Shut Up yesterday. Yeah, I'm going to read that aloud because I think you put it beautifully. The thing is, and I hope this starts to become the accepted norm again, but masculinity and femininity are both present in everyone, and having a healthy relationship with them in oneself is both. In oneself is both relative to the person and important. Sorry, I read that awkwardly, but yeah, I agree. I mean, that's really well said. I was just talking with Shut Up about this, not about this particular topic, but she brought up the fact that she was like, at RISD. Wait, you have more to say. No one has the same ratio nor the same method of expression of these attributes, but they must accept them and learn to express them healthily. Some men are very effeminate and great people. Some men are extremely masculine and wonderful people. Yeah, of course. I agree with that, but I would add a caveat, not even a caveat, just like another layer to that, is that I have noticed, as everyone has, that generally speaking, a lot of men are less kind of masculine than they've been in the past, and some of that's just more acceptance. But some of that, I think, is that a lot of guys have been kind of socialized to like see anything masculine as toxic. And so they're like not expressing any masculinity like at all, even though it's in them. And I have a feeling that for a lot of men who are very depressed, because men right now there's so many men who are suicidal and depressed, and I do think some of that is that they're kind of out of touch with what they are. It's like if you have to suppress a part of yourself and you've been suppressing it your whole life because you were told it was something evil, and it's like a big piece of who you are, you're not expressing it, and it's just there all the time, and then you feel like a failure and you don't know why. You feel like you're not measuring up to something and you don't know what that is. I think in some cases it's like that the guy is naturally, maybe deep down, wants to be different. He wants to be maybe more traditionally masculine, and he feels like he doesn't even know how because he's been socialized so differently, and it's like, I think that can cause depression. And some of that, I mean, also, I was once a personal trainer. I was working in the health field, and there was a whole thing about, and now finally 10 years later it's reaching the mainstream, this whole discussion of health, but basically like men's testosterone rates have been plummeting like 1% a year for the past few years, and it's continuing, like it keeps going, and that has been in tandem, like happening at the same rate that people offing themselves, that men with suicidality, that's been happening at the same rate. So like as testosterone rates go down, men offing themselves, I don't know if I can say the whole thing because it it goes up. Like like male depression and anxiety gets higher the lower your testosterone gets, because testosterone it's the positivity hormone. So when I was working with guys, and that's one of the reasons that like women are generally speaking more prone to negative thinking and like being a little more neurotic, it's because the lower testosterone in women naturally, which is, again, that's like beautiful because that's how human beings are made, is that women historically have been the ones they call it scanning the horizon. So when we were hunter-gatherers, women would be the ones looking out and being worried about predators a lot of the time. And then the men would be the ones who were like adrenaline, like I can do it, I can kill anything, I can get us food, I'll do whatever. It's almost like that's why there's that stereotype of men being a little bit stupid, like we just think we can do whatever. Some of that's just testosterone telling you, go do it, you can do it, you can do it. Because if we were more neurotic, we probably wouldn't be useful in a crisis. And it's like one of those things that makes women really good at identifying threats. Like the fact that women tend to be more prone to anxiety, it's not because you're weaker, it's because your brain is working differently, and it's incredible, like how nature designed us. But yeah, a lot of it comes down to diets, like Damu said. Hey, what's up, by the way? It's like if you're eating tons of processed stuff and it's like full of seed oils and all this stuff, a lot of guys don't realize that that's killing your hormones. And it's very hard to fix too, because then you get addicted to certain foods. But Yeah, I don't. I agree with you that it is wishful thinking that I don't think there'll be an epiphany, but I do think there's going to be. Yeah, Damu says it right. Yeah, I agree. Generations of processed food and plastic have done such a gigantic toll on people. So yeah, it's destroyed people. Also, like cancer rates, like all this stuff. It didn't used to be like this. We didn't used to lose so many people to cancer. It's so freaking sad, and it's like mostly because of the crap they're putting in our food. And it's really infuriating when you're watching an election, and neither of the two big ones, neither Biden or Trump, no one's talking about that, about like, hey, we got to clean up the American diet, because like there's so much data that connects political extremism to poor physical health. So we're like, oh my God, why is everybody so nuts now? And it's like, well, people are literally ill. Like our country is sick. A lot of people are sick because they're exposed to all kinds of crap in their food and the water and everything, and it messes with your hormones, and then that further it messes with your brain. It makes you unreasonable and weird, and it increases, I think, autism. It's neuroses, anxiety, delusion, schizophrenia. All that stuff is higher when you're not taking care of your body and your brain, and it's like, and it's not people's fault too. People, it's not like we have to do more. It's like they have to poison us less, Like there's that video, or that photo, I should say, of people that's been going viral, of people on the beach back in like 1965, and they're just showing all the people on the beach, and everybody is just like, this is not me fat shaming, because I'm a big guy too. I'm chubby, but like everybody's like between the ideal weight that we see now as being like impossible for some of us, and it's like it was the average, and it wasn't because people weren't eating. Everybody was eating. It's just the ingredients in our food were not poison. It was like you had, like there was a time when all meat was grass-fed to some extent, and it, like organic food that was just food like 50 years ago. You didn't have to pay extra to get food that wasn't full of like weird chemicals and stuff, and seed oils started replacing olive oil and butter as like a staple of the diet, and it's just like that's a huge part of it. Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot of things that just people cutting corners on their morals and stuff, and just Hey, what's up, Robert? Thank you, man. I'm so glad you're here. How did you find me, Robert? Do I know you from the Discord, or maybe you're on Instagram, or? Yeah. Yeah, Damu, that's totally it. Anger and old age. People start lashing out when their body starts to fail, when their family is passing away. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's one of those things that just, and it's like as I've gotten older, I care so much less about so many other things in politics. I just care about like who's gonna like, be the one to force companies to clean up the food and the water supply and all that stuff, because that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest issue we're facing, honestly, as a culture, is like getting healthier. And when I worked as a personal trainer, because you were talking about masculinity and stuff, and when I was working as a trainer, I was a boxer, and I was a trainer and stuff, and I remember talking to guys who were, most of my clients were men. I was one of those trainers that it was like young men specifically wanted to work with me, and I think it's because, when they know that you box, it's like that's very attractive to them, as like a wish fulfillment. And how many people, not just women but men too, like needed permission to defend themselves, where I would teach them self-defense and all that when I was at Rutgers, and it would be really interesting to watch them struggle with this idea that like, hey, it's okay to protect yourself if somebody's trying to hurt you. You don't have to be worried about, So we would have these mantras of like, before we start learning, you have to say out loud, I have the right to defend myself. And I'm not talking about people using guns. I'm talking about like being willing to hit somebody who's trying to get into your house, or somebody who's trying to manhandle you in the street or something. Like giving yourself permission to throw a punch, you know? Because I started recognizing that it didn't matter how much somebody trains on a heavy bag and they learn how to throw their hips into a punch. If you don't get over the anxiety and that fear that you're going to hurt someone else, and just like give yourself permission to fight back if somebody's trying to harm you or a loved one, it almost doesn't matter, because then people will just freeze up. And it's just a huge part of it. And that problem was getting more consistent over time with people. Like I started noticing as I got younger and younger clients, there were more and more of them that felt like they weren't allowed to like literally to strike an attacker. And I was like, wow, this is like shocking to me that people, you know, oh, hey, I'm so glad that YouTube showed you to me, Robert. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, at a certain point, it's like, if somebody's trying... what I told people, Robert, was that, like... And I would have to repeat this to people several times, because it was, like, hard. You know, if you're a decent person, it's hard to get around the idea that you're going to hurt somebody. And I would tell them, like... Once somebody has made it clear that they want to hurt you, it is no longer your responsibility to worry about their safety. Beyond a certain point. Like if your wife is in the next room, your kids, like whatever, like do what you got to do and sort it out after. Yeah, we have been taught. That's a really good way to put it. We've been taught to infantilize ourselves. Yeah. It's really scary. And it feels almost like, I don't want to get conspiratorial, but it feels like there's been like this weird mandate to make people softer over time, to like lose some of that inherent toughness that like makes people, you know. Yeah, I mean, philosophically, I think about that. Like, how do we try to get that good, strong grit back? You know, where people are tough, and at the same time try to maintain these wonderful modern comforts that we have. If there's a way to do both. Because some people are like, oh, we just have to get rid of the internet and go back to the woods and stuff. It's like, no, man. Like, we conquered the planet as human beings so that we could stop getting hunted by tigers and stuff. I don't think we want to go back to that. But at the same time, like, we did lose something, and maybe we can remember it, you know. But, yeah, I don't know. But this is the kind of stuff that people talk about when they're like, oh, I can't sleep right now, so I'm thinking about, like, is it time to return to the wild? Robert, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. I'm so glad. I am going to leave in like 5 minutes because I got to go, but I'm going to come back tonight. So. Oh, yeah, that's so funny to me, what you just said, Gross Girl, about the safe space for the children. Because it's like, I mean, I think you're my generation, right? You're like in your 30s, and like when I was a kid, like, you know, obviously your parents didn't want to actively traumatize you, but they were like okay with, you know, and I had strict parents, and even they were like, yeah, he's gonna watch a scary movie. It'll be fine. Oh, you had nightmares? It's fine. You'll be fine. You know. Yeah, the safe. It's funny too, because the whole thing of the safe space for the kids, it's like it's not really for them. It's not really for them at all. It's for the adults. People like people they want a safe space mostly so that they don't have to hear it, and then they want to use their kids as like a smokescreen. And yeah, I mean, we're me and my fiance are hoping to have kids in the next year, right after we're married, and we've been having an extended conversation about that, about like where we want to balance it, like how to balance that thing of like we want to raise kids that are tough and smart and resourceful and not fragile, but at the same time we don't want to, you know, go the other direction and be like sink or swim, kid. You know, the way that I've been telling it to her was like, and this is just how I think of it as a person, because I think I'm naturally this way, is that, you know, I want to challenge my kids and I want to let them challenge themselves, and I want to not coddle them. Like if they fall down, you know, if they're not badly hurt, I'm not going to, like, you know, if they're crying, because kids will, little kids, when they fall, you can see them look at their parents and be like, should I cry? How bad is this? They want to see your reaction. And if you're like a really neurotic parent, you go, oh my God. And like the kid learns, like, oh, every time I fall down and skim my knee, it's a tragedy. And instead, you know, and you don't want to be the other way where you're like, you're fine, nothing's wrong, get up. Because then they feel like they're ashamed or something. So you got to be something in the middle where you're like, are you okay? Are you good? And they're like, yeah, I think so. And you're like, okay, then you can probably keep playing, you know, or you can go sit down, but it's okay, you'll be fine. I think balancing that while also being like a really affectionate parent, like letting your kids know that you love them a lot, I think that's a good balance. Be tough on your kids, but also, or tough with your kids, but also, you know, discipline and like, I feel like I was telling her, like, I don't feel like discipline is the opposite of love. Like it's not either or. Like kids feel really loved and looked after when they know that you're gonna, you know, lay down the law. It's, you know, oh my God, actually in that vein, yeah, you see, you grew up in, that's funny, Robert, you grew up in Marshall. I was just talking earlier, I don't know if you caught the beginning of this, but I used to be a boxer before I was an artist. So that's why that's why I have this viewpoint. So we probably have a lot in common, you and me, but a little bit of danger is good. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Like you hurt your hand doing something with a tool, and you cry for a minute, and then you remember for next time. And a lot of kids aren't getting that, so they have they grow up to be delusional adults because they never burned their hand on the stove. They never were like, ow. So they just have this like weird perception of things. Yeah. Oh, that's so sad that kids are afraid they're going to be doing something wrong in art class. Like the whole point of art class is in a lot of ways to be a break from structure, right? I mean, it's like school is already very structured, and some of that's important, that's fine, but like when you take them to art class, it's like you want them to have a sense of like, okay, now this is the time to like be less strict and be more loose, you know? Because that's you know, kids need a break from that, and they need to be able to be creative and stuff. Hey, you did Golden Gloves. That's awesome, man. Yeah, yeah. I never fought in Detroit. I fought mostly here in the East Coast. I fought out of a little bit out of Queens at one point, but I mostly did like New Jersey. Like the New Brunswick boxing scene back in the early 2000s was pretty decent. What weight class did you fight in, Robert, if I can ask? Wow. That's crazy. Is that, you know, I wonder, Gross Girl, is that something you think is common across generations, or do you think that's kids now? I'm going to sign off in a second, but I wanted to say, so this really nice couple invited me to do D&D with them. I think I'm going to. But they do D&D programs to like teach kids how to play D&D, which is really fun. But they said a lot of that game, as you know, is about imagination. Like it's, you know, coming up with your character, coming up with your quest, and, you know, visualizing. And they were saying they've noticed every few years when they get a new batch of kids that they're teaching D&D to at their little like home school or whatever, their ability to imagine is more and more impeded. It's like weaker, and they said it's probably because they spend so much time on their cell phones just engaging with constant media that they're not imagining, you know? Because when you're a little kid, how much time did you spend just thinking about things and looking at trees and imagining? Like I lived in my world, like probably a little too much as a kid. And a lot of kids now aren't getting any version of that, and that's really scary. All right. I gotta go, guys, but I'll be back on, okay? Thanks for showing up. I hope to see you guys again when I'm coming back on tonight. Bye for now.